The first thing I want to do now is to change the name of our folder. So I want to go to this folder right here and then change the name of this folder day 1 inside to let it be day 1-2. Because each section in this course is supposed to be done in 2 days. This course is designed for 30 days of work with materials, tasks for you, and bonuses on YouTube. You can of course do it in 1 day, which will be great, but it might take a lot of time. You can also do it in 3 days, but try to keep that as a maximum time to do 1 section, because the knowledge might pop out of your head easily if you don't spend much time increasing it. So now let's close this folder, and we should have something like this. Web Dev Course folder, inside of it day 1-2 folder, and inside project 1 name folder. So let's close this for now. And now let's open our code editor, which is the Visual Studio Code. If you open it for the first time, you should probably see something like this on your screen. It's the welcoming screen of Visual Studio Code. Now I want to show you a couple ways of opening our code editor. So let's close it. The first way is to search our Visual Studio Code. So we can start typing it right here. And you can see it already here or here. So now you just have to click it. And voila, our code editor is open. Now let's close it. And let's try the other way. We can click on our folder with the right mouse button. And we have this option right here, open with code. So let's click it. And now we have our code editor open with our folder Web Dev Course as a workspace. But now I'll show you the third way, it's my favorite one. If we open our code editor again, we can move it and just drag the folder we want to work with to the window of our code editor. Just like this. And the effect is the same like with clicking our folder with right mouse button and clicking the option open with code. Now I want to show you what we got in the code editor itself. First of all, we can maximize the window. And what we got in the top left corner is the menu. Here we can also click the file option. And now we can click open folder option like this. And here we have the Explorer, where we can also choose our folder we want to work with. So the effect will be exactly the same as we got here. On the left side we have this column right here, which displays our workspace. In this example, our workspace is our folder we called Web Dev Course. So we can see it right here. We can open it, close it. Inside we have our other folder, which is day 1 and 2. And then we have our next folder, which is project 1 name. And this is the exact same thing as we got in our folder in our Windows Explorer. Just like this. Above our workspace, we have this open editors option, which is empty at the moment because we don't have any open editor right now, but we will get to this. And what you can do with the column is to grab it with your mouse and make it bigger or smaller the way you want to do this. Also, if you want, you can make it even disappear like this. But in my opinion, it's convenient to have it. So if you made it disappear, you can click on this option right here, which is the Explorer, and then our column will come back. Now I want to show you how to create some files. Remember that we are in our Web Dev Course folder, right here. Inside we go to our day 1 and 2 folder, and inside of it we go to our project 1 name. So if you want to create a file inside that folder, you have to highlight it like this, and then click the right mouse button on it, and choose option new file. Just like this. And then we have to type the name of our new file with the extension, and that is very important. So let it be index.html for now. And now we can see that we created this file right here inside our project 1 name folder. And we have it open in our editor right here, which we can also see when we click this open editor option right here. Now let's create another file. So once again, we highlight the folder we want to create the file in. We click the right mouse button and choose the option new file right here. So now let's create another file. Let's call it style. And let's put its extension, which is very important, by dot, and typing, for example, CSS. Don't worry if you don't understand any of this. We'll get to everything. But for now, I just want to show you how the file system works in our code editor and our operating system. So now you can see that in our folder, project 1 name, we have two files, which is index.html right here and our style CSS file right here. We can also see them here as the editors, which we can switch. Now we are in style CSS file and now we are in index.html. So these files are now open in our editors, which we can see in our open editors overlap right here. This is our index.html file. This is our style CSS file. And we can close them right here by clicking this X, or right here with our open editors overlap. The effect will be the same. And we can open them once again by clicking on them with double click. We can also set our files however we want by dragging them right here. If we want index.html first and then style CSS, or if we want first style CSS and then index.html. I like to work like this when I have first HTML file and then CSS file, but it's actually up to you. So now I am in my index.html file, which you can see is highlighted right here and in our open editors overlap. So now what I want to do is to create simple HTML structure. Once again, don't worry if you don't understand it at this point. I'll explain everything in this course, but for now I just want you to know the basic rules of Visual Studio Code and how this code editor works. So let's create HTML tag. Inside, let's create the head tag. And the body tag. Now I want to go to our style CSS file and add something to it. I'm gonna add some simple CSS rules just to have something in this file. So once again, don't worry if you don't understand it at this point. I just want you to get familiar with something. So let's create this rule, for example. It will say that every element on our website will have the font size of 30 pixels. So now you can see we have our editors right here and we can switch with them. This is our index.html file. This is our style CSS file. We can see up here which file is actually opened. Here you can see style CSS. Here you can see index.html. You can also see it in our open editors overlap. This is our one file. This is our other file. And of course we have it in our workspace, which is our web dev course folder right here. Inside we have day 1 and 2 folder. Inside of it we have project 1 name. And here you can see also our files, which are index.html and style CSS. Now if you press Ctrl+, you can increase the size of the whole code editor. And if you press Ctrl- on your keyboard, you can decrease it. Now I want to show you these dots right here, which you can see in our index.html file, in our style CSS file, and it's also visible up right here in our open editor. If we go to style CSS, we can see it as well. This is the information that our code editor detected change in our file, but we didn't save the change because we didn't save any of our files since we created it. And of course, to save your file, you can click File and Save, or Save As if you want to save it as in another file. But the best way to save your files in Code Editor is to click Ctrl and S on your keyboard. Now take a look at this dot right here. And if I click Ctrl S on my keyboard, you can see this dot is no longer visible because I saved my file right now. It's the same situation with our index.html file. You can see this dot right here, and right here. And when I press Ctrl S on my keyboard, you can see those dots are missing. So this dot is an information for us that if we make some change in our file, like for example, creating another tag inside our body, this dot informs us that we changed our files but didn't save them. So if we want to save our changes, all we have to do is press Ctrl S on our keyboard. So for now, let's delete this tag right here. We can see this dot appeared once again. So let's save our file with Ctrl S. And now we can see it's missing. So all the changes in our files are saved right now. You can also see those icons at the bottom of our screen. These are the additional information which we will discuss later on. But for now, what you can see right here is that information about the type of our file. In this example, it's the HTML file because we are in our index.html. But when we go to our style CSS file, we can see this information changed to CSS. And that's why those extensions are so important when we create our new files, because our code editor has to know with what kind of file it's dealing with. Here you can also see the encode system, which is the UTF-8, which you will know better later on this course. This is the information about our text indents, which I will show you as well. And here we have information, where's our cursor at the moment. You can see it's line 3, column 2, but if we go with our cursor like here, we can see it's line 2 and column 15. Trust me, everything will be clear for you later on. Now I want to tell you something about the Emmet extension and how it works. Emmet is a shortcut system built in Visual Studio Code. It appears also in other code editors as a built-in feature or additional extension. It helps us a lot in our work by shortening the spelling. And the best example of using it is building a basic HTML structure. So let's go back to our code editor. Now we have style CSS file opened. So let's go back to our index.html file. And what you can see here is a basic HTML structure of the website. We have opening tag of HTML tag and closing tag. Inside of it, we have opening and closing head tag and opening and closing body tag. But it's not the best way to do it manually. So let's delete it. And let's use our Emmet shortcut. What I want to do now is to type exclamation mark and press Tab or Enter on your keyboard. And voila, here you have the basic modern HTML file structure. So let's save it. And you can see some additional tags, which we will also discuss later on this course. But you can see the main structure is quite the same. We have HTML tag right here. Inside of it we have an attribute, but it doesn't matter at the moment. We have the closing tag at the end. And inside we have a head tag where we have its opening and closing, and our body tag, which also has the opening and closing. So it's very convenient way to create your HTML structure using the Emmet shortcut. I'm going to show you this once again. Let's delete it with backspace or delete on our keyboard. Let's type exclamation mark and tab or enter on your keyboard. And voila. What we want to do next is to save with Control Save. And here we have the basic HTML structure of our website. Now I want to show you how we create tags in HTML with and without Emmet shortcut. Let's go to our body and let's create, for example, div. And you can see when I close the opening tag, Visual Studio Code automatically adds the closing tag. This is how the most of the code editors works. Now let's create another tag, for example, p tag. So we have to type square bracket, enter p, close the square bracket, and then we can see Visual Studio Code automatically adds the closing tag. But let's delete it. And I want to show you that with Emmet it's even simpler. All you have to do is to type div and then press enter or tab on your keyboard. It's the same situation with our p. Just type p, enter, and you have your p tag ready to go. It's quicker, simpler, and it helps us with avoiding errors. It's even more useful if you want to create, for example, 10 p tags at once. Then you press p, asterisk, 10, press enter, and voila. It would last longer if you wanted to do it manually. Now let's delete these. Let's just leave one div and one p in our HTML structure. Let's save our file. If the Emmet doesn't work with your Visual Studio Code, check, for example, if you have the extension of your file like this, because it might not be working if you leave your file without an extension. So I say it once again, it's very important to keep the extensions of your file, just like this. Because Emmet also recognizes if it's dealing with the HTML file or CSS file or JS file, which is JavaScript. Because when we go to our style CSS file and when we will try to use the same Emmet shortcut in CSS file, which is exclamation mark and enter, we're gonna get this. Important is a certain CSS rule, which we will learn later as well. So keep in mind to check your extensions in your files, and everything should be okay. In our HTML file, we can see a couple benefits of using a code editor. And I mean any code editor, not only Visual Studio Code. The first is syntax coloring. Even if you don't know what actually this code means, you can see that some elements are highlighted by different colors. For example, we have blue tags, light blue attributes, orange values of the attributes, and white content of the tags. What are those attributes and values? You'll learn soon with me, don't worry. The second benefit are indents, which you can see right here. That we have head element, and inside this element, every element is nested. So tags are nested in other tags, and it makes the code more clear for the developer. Now I'm going to show you that you can change the size of those indents. And you can do it by clicking this icon right here at the bottom of the screen. And you can choose those two options, which is indent using spaces or using tabs. So let's see, for example, this option by tabs. And let's make it 3. Let's make some changes. And now let's save our file, and you could see the difference. Let's change it once again. Let's choose spaces, for example, and let's use one space. So now you can see we have saved some space, and that's the setting I usually work with to make those indents smaller to save some space. You can see the next benefit when you hover on this section right here. And I'm talking about those little arrows you can see here, here, and here. And what is cool about it is that you can hide, for example, this element. By clicking it, you can see that our whole head element now is not visible for us. It's still there in the file, but it's just hidden from us, just to save some space on the screen. Now we can make it go back. You can see it right here, or hide it if we don't want to see it. So now you can see our head element and body element is hidden, or you can even hide the whole HTML element. The structure of this file stays the same, but when our code is getting too long, we can this way hide its elements just to save some space on the monitor, as I said before. Now let's go back to normal, like this. Now I want to show you how to change your color theme. All you have to do is to click this gear icon right here. And here you have color theme option. You can click it and you can choose any theme you like. I work with this one, which is Dark Plus, which is the default theme. But if you want to use other one, feel free to do it. Now let's install our first extension. And to do it, we have to click this icon right here, which is extensions. Let's click it. And we can see the column with the extensions. I'll make the column bigger, just so we could see the icons of the extensions, which will be easier for you and me to install it. Here you can see the tab with the popular extensions right here. Here you can see a tab with recommended extensions, but we want to go right here to search extensions in Marketplace and type material icons. There we go, material icon theme. The first one with this icon, you can see it was downloaded 5.3 million times. So what we want to do now is to click this green icon and we can see our extension is being installed. And now we have our extensions installed. So let's check it out. Let's go to our Files Explorer right here. And you can see that icons of our files are changed. It's very useful extension, and it will be even more useful when we will go to the more advanced projects with many types of files in our folders. Now let's go back to our editors. And now I want to show you something else. When you hover to our folder, you can click the right mouse button and then choose the option Reveal in File Explorer. Let's do this. And now you can see that our folder is opened in our Windows Explorer as well. Let's open it. And now you can see that we have the same files in our File Explorer as well as in our Visual Studio Code. And now I want to show you how well synchronized our code editor is with our operating system and File Explorer. What I want to do now is to create a new folder. Let's make it new folder. And you can see it's also visible in our Visual Studio Code right here. And now you can see that I can click right mouse button on our new folder in Visual Studio Code. Then I can click delete. You can see now it's disappeared, and it's also disappeared in our folder, which you can see right here. It works the same with creating files. Let's create a new file. Let's call it new HTML. Let's open our folder in Explorer, and you can see this new HTML file appeared in our Explorer as well. And when I delete it, you can see it also disappeared from our Visual Studio Code. And you can see the information in our editor that the new HTML file is now deleted. So you can create and delete folders and files both in your File Explorer or in your code editor. Now let's go to our div tag and let's type something in it. Hello world, it's a cliche, but in our case, we'll just let it be. But let's type something else in our p tag. Let's save it. And let's open our index.html file in a browser. You can see the effect right here. I will zoom it a little bit. This is our website. Here you can see the URL of our website. You can see it's the path in our file system to our index.html file. And if you copy it and open in other browser, in this case Microsoft Edge, if you paste the URL, click enter, you can see that it's the same website as well. And you can see it's the same URL right here. So when we work on our computer, the URL in the browser is the same as our file system path to our HTML file. And copying the URL of our project file helps us to see the effect of our work in many different browsers. Now I want to close this Microsoft Edge, minimize the folder in our file explorer, and now I want to split my screen to have the code editor on one side and the browser on the second side. So I'm going to do it this way by grabbing my browser window, head to the end of the screen, leave it, and get my code editor to the other side of the screen. I usually work with 2 monitors in my work, and in the future you should also think about 2 monitors in your work, because it's very comfortable when you can have code editor on one monitor and the browser with your project on the other one. But for now, 1 monitor is completely fine, and we will manage to do our projects on 1 monitor by splitting the screen in 2 halves. First thing, I want to get this column to be smaller. I have my indents set to 1 space, which is the smallest amount, to save me some space right here. Now I want to show you something. When I decrease the size of my code editor, you can see the whole text is wrapping up. And when I make it bigger, you can see it's stretching to the size of the window, like this. And if your Visual Studio Code doesn't behave like this, this is what you need to do. Click this manage icon right here. Go to settings right here. You should be in commonly used, which you can see right here and right here. And find this property, which is called editor word wrap. And this should be on, because when you turn it off like this, when we go to our index.html, you can see that the text is not wrapping and it's hidden under our window, and we have to scroll it to see the whole text. And it's not very comfortable option. So once again, let's click our manage icon, settings, commonly used, which we can see right here. Go down a little bit, and we have this property editor word wrap. Let's turn it on. Let's close the settings. And now we can see our text is wrapping up. You can also go to the settings once again, and also in commonly used overlap, you can see this property editor font size, where you can change the font size of the text in your code editor if it's too big or too small for a reason. But as I said before, you can also use Ctrl+ to make it bigger, but it makes the whole interface bigger, or Ctrl- to make it all smaller. So when you change the font size of the code editor, the only thing that is changing is the font itself. Now I want to show you how the browser works. Let's make changes to our file, just like this. Now you can see that the content of our HTML file in the code editor is different than in our website right here. Here you can see that our file is not saved at the moment. So let's save the changes by clicking Ctrl S on our keyboard. And now you can see that even if our file is saved, nothing changed to our website. And that's because we have to refresh it. Clicking right here, reload this page, or by clicking F5 on our keyboard. Voila. So you have to know that if you put some changes into your file, first you have to save it, Ctrl S, and then you have to refresh your page in a browser. Just like this. But there's a quicker and more comfortable way to see the effects of our work. But to get it, we have to install another extension. So let's close our browser at the moment. Let's make our code editor full screen. Let's click on our extensions icon. Make our column bigger to see the icons of the extensions like this. Go to the search area once again and search for extensions called Live Server. You can see it right here. This is the extension called Live Server with this icon having 7.4 million of downloads. So what we want to do is to click install right here. Now our extension is installing. And when you see this gear, that means that our extension is already installed. Let's close this. Let's go back to our Explorer overlap. Make this column smaller. And what does this extension do? It creates the live preview of our project. And now I want to show you how to open it in our code editor. The first way is to click on this icon, which should appear after installing this extension, where you can see Go Live quote. So we can click it and our live server should be open like this. Now let's close it for a minute. This icon is not always visible. So the second, and in my opinion the best way to open the live server, is to click the right mouse button on our editor and choose the option Open with Live Server right here. And the effect is exactly the same. The first difference you may see with opening our file in Live Server is the URL of this file. Now you can see it's not the path to our HTML file in our hard drive. This is the URL of the local server that have been made in our computer. So you have to know that Live Server extension creates a local host, which is a virtual server on our hard drive. But you can also copy this URL and open it in other browser with the same effect, but as long as your server is working, which you can see right here. Now when we click it, we will disconnect our live server like this. And now when we want to refresh our website, unfortunately it's not working. So you have to keep it in mind. Let's close it for now. And what else is important is that you have to remember that live server can only be opened on the HTML files. Because if you go to the CSS file right here and click it with the right mouse button, you won't find Open with Live Server option. So you have to go to index.html, click the right mouse button, and then you have it right here. Now I want to show you something else. Let's open our file with the live server. We have it right here. Let's split the screen. And now you can see that our live server is working. When I'm refreshing it, it stays the same. But what happens if you disconnect our live server? We disconnect it. Now it's not connected, so the page isn't refreshing anymore. And what happens when we go live once again? It opens in a new tab. So this new tab is active and we can refresh it all the time, but as well as our older preview, which now is also active when our live server is running currently. So now you can see we have two tabs with live server and they work perfectly fine. So let's close one of it. And now I want to show you why this live server is so comfortable to use. Because when you make some changes in your file, all you have to do is save it and you can see instantly the change in the browser. So you don't have to refresh the site manually because everything is going on automatically just when you save the file. We can create another p tag. And you can see instant effect of your work. And now I want to show you something else. You can see in my file explorer that I have Chrome icon attached to the HTML files. And when I click the HTML file, it automatically opens in the Google Chrome browser. So now let's close it. But if your default browser is different, I want you to change it to Google Chrome, and I'll show you how to do this. First possibility is to click the right mouse button on your HTML file and then click Open With, and you can see your browsers right here. Let's click on the Firefox, for example, and now you can see our website is open in Firefox. Let's close it. But if you want to change it constantly, click the right mouse button on the file, click Open With, and then click Choose Other App like this. And you can choose whatever browser you want. Just make sure to check this option, always use this app to open HTML files. So I'll change to the Firefox just to see it in our example. Click OK. Now you can see it opened in Firefox. And you can see the icon is different as well. So if you have Firefox icon or other different browser than Chrome, click it with the right mouse button, click Open With, choose another app, check this, always use this app to open HTML files, and choose Google Chrome, then click OK. And now you can see our site is open in Google Chrome, and the icon changed to Google Chrome as well. Now let's close it and let's install the last extension for today. Let's go once again to our extensions overlap. Make our column bigger to see icons. And the next extension we want to search is Beautify. It's this extension right here. It's called Beautify with this nice icon. It also has 5 million downloads right now. So what we want to do is to install it by clicking this button right here. It's already installed. So now let's close it. Let's go back to our index.html file. Let's decrease our column like this. Go to our Explorer overlap like this. And what do we need this extension for? Sometimes you may mess with the code like this by clicking some tabs, some spaces, other tabs, making those indents look really not nice, and it's not so clear to read to us. So the Beautify extension is responsible for making our code beautiful again after we save our file. So let's check it out. Let's click Ctrl S, and you can see that our code is back to normal again. Of course, when our code is messed up like this, it doesn't change anything. and it's worked the same as it used to, but it's not so clear for us as a developers. So it's very convenient, especially at the beginning, to have this beautify extension, to know that if we mess something up after saving, our code will be formatted properly. And if your code isn't formatting when you save, this is what you should do. Click this gear icon once again, go to settings, then go to text editor, formatting right here, and check this option, format on save. Because when it's disabled like this, if we go to our index.html file and mess with the code once again, now when we save our file, nothing actually happens. So once again, we have to go to settings, text editor right here, formatting, and we got this format on save option. We have to check it to enable it. Close the settings, save our file, and everything goes back to normal. So now we have everything needed to start our work. We will learn the rest of the interface of our code editor and its additional functions in practice by coding and making our projects. So let's move on.